Hi, I'm Joe Finsternis, and tonight I'm going to talk to you about a movie called The Eye 3. Now, I've never seen The Eye with Jessica Alba, nor do I ever plan to, but for those of you who don't know, that film was a remake of a Chinese movie, and yes, this third movie is part of the Chinese series, so if you don't like subtitles, don't watch it. If you're okay with subtitles, then stick around and decide for yourself as to whether or not you want to see this. I have seen the first two films of this series, and if you would like to know my thoughts on them, I'll give you a quick review right now. They're scary. So the third Eye movie is about this group of teenagers who perform some rituals that they find in a book, and then things start to go awry. Now, this did not feel like an Eye movie. One thing that was sort of a red flag for me going in was that this film is rated PG-13, whereas the first two were R, and I probably wouldn't have even given it a second glance if it wasn't for the fact that it was made by the Pang brothers. They were the same filmmakers who worked on the first two movies, so I figured I'd go ahead and give this a shot and see if it's even half as good as the first two. But I don't even know whether it was supposed to be like a serious horror movie or a goofy comedy, and I don't think the Pang brothers really knew what they were trying to make either. Now, all three of these movies are ghost stories, so right off the bat, this film starts off confusing with an exorcism scene. This possessed woman is floating in the air, spinning around. She's surrounded by a circle of monks who are trying to exorcise her, and every time her face approaches one of the monks, she just goes like, ah! And then the monks will jump back like, hmm. And that would have been funny enough by itself, but then this long tongue slithers out of her mouth, and she starts slapping them in the face with it. Yeah, no idea what was happening there. Anyway, in the scene where these teenagers start discussing the different rituals that they can do to see some ghosts, the guy who owns the book mentions one of them is combing your hair at midnight. And it's after he mentions it that one of the girls asks, "Is there a safer way?" How is combing your hair unsafe? I mean, that's not even really funny. That's just annoyingly stupid. It's also during this discussion scene that the guy with the book mentions that there were two cases in the past where two of these rituals actually worked, and this is where the film connects itself to the first two movies in a fashion that would be the most tenuous sequel connection I've ever seen if it hadn't been for that scene in Halloween 3 where they showed a commercial for the first movie on that television set. But apparently, the suicide attempt by a pregnant woman and the cornea transplant were in fact rituals that would allow people to see ghosts, because I guess cornea transplants have been practiced for centuries. I don't fucking know. There's also a scene in the film where they bring back one of the scares from the original movie involving this little ghost boy with a baseball hat. And the way that plays out in this movie is hilarious. It's really bad, but hilarious. There were a few moments in it where it felt like it was trying to be genuinely scary, and it just kind of failed miserably. I will admit that got me once. There was a brief isolated moment involving a severed head that made me jump a little bit, but outside of that, the film was beyond laughable. Definitely the shining moment of stupidity was when one of the guys was walking down this hallway in an apartment building, and he was possessed by a ghost, and then he started moving weirdly. It almost looked like he was dancing. And these two other guys come around the corner, and they see him doing this, and then they challenge him to a dance-off. I don't. I like to avoid stealing phrases from other reviewers, but this is what the nostalgia critic would refer to as a big-lipped alligator moment. When something happens right the fuck out of nowhere, there's no explanation for it, and it's never mentioned again. I guess that if you enjoy watching some bad movies to get a good laugh out of how bad they are, then by all means check this one out. For me, it just barely missed the so bad it's good mark. The thing that really killed it for me was the ending. I mean, for the most part, I'm pretty forgiving of movies that go on a little longer than you expect. Some people complained that Anchorman 2 went on for a little too long, and I was okay with it. There were even a couple of people who didn't like the fact that the Evil Dead remake kept going on, but I would have been disappointed if it didn't. In the case of this movie, near the end, there were moments that just kept lingering, and I think it was just for the sake of getting more runtime out of the film, and it just ended up pissing me off. So, yeah, I don't really recommend this movie to a large amount of people. Once again, if you want to get a good laugh out of something for how bad it is, go ahead and give it a shot. So that's all I have to say about the i3. I hope you all have a good one.